Sharpen the axes. The signal is loud this morning. Warband. It is Monday, May 25th, 2026. Memorial Day. The flag flies today for those who paid the iron price so the rest could live free, and the trading floors honor them by going dark. The next opening bell rings tomorrow, but the markets that matter to a HODLBarbarian never sleep, and the last 72 hours moved a great deal of ground. Listen, markets, holiday edition. The equity desks are closed for Memorial Day, so we leave Friday's closing prints, where they sit, and pivot to the tape that is actually live. As of 6:15 Eastern this morning, Bitcoin trades at 77,439, holding its range on the 24-hour, Ethereum at 2,114, Solana at $85.88. The crypto cluster held its range through a quiet weekend, and the rotation engine fired in a sequence the Warband needs to register. Saturday at noon Eastern, Ethereum threw a mean reversion oversold signal. Sunday at 4 in the morning, Ethereum and Solana both flipped optimized trend bullish in the same hour. Sunday evening at 8, Bitcoin itself went optimized trend bullish. 3 different majors, 3 optimized trend bullish prints, and an oversold bounce flag, all inside a single 36-hour window. This is the Invest Answers decision support system, telling you the crypto complex aligned during the quietest tape of the week. Regime calls do not announce themselves with fanfare. They print silently on a holiday weekend while the suites are at the lake. Now to the stories that moved the map. Story 1. SpaceX. The largest initial public offering in the history of capital markets is now 16 trading days out, and the engineering organization is acting like it. Pad 2 at Starbase is already being prepped for Starship Flight 13. SpaceX filed the Federal Communications Commission Special Temporary Authority that opens the launch window starting Thursday, May 29th, 4 days from now. Ship 40. Another version 3 vehicle is the candidate, and the target this time is potentially the first fully orbital Starship mission. 3 days after the company's S1 prospectus dropped, the next vehicle is already on the pad. That is not corporate posturing. That is the operational tempo of a company that runs on rocket cadence and intends to bring that cadence into the public markets. The S1 tells the rest of the story. The roadshow valuation anchors at roughly $2 trillion, a number that was a private market joke 12 months ago and is an S1 footnote today. Starlink is the cash engine doing the heavy lifting on the income statement, an installed base now north of 9 million subscribers across more than 100 countries, with annualized service revenue tracking in the high single-digit billions and gross margin profile that institutional underwriters can finally model. The launch business prints reliable cash on commercial and national security contracts. Starship is the moonshot line item, and then there is the XAI absorption, read as XAI, the Grok Builder Mask folded into SpaceX in February. The S1 discloses the terms in detail, an all-stock combination at a roughly $200 billion XAI mark. The Colossus compute clusters in Memphis transferred onto the SpaceX balance sheet, and Grok integration rights across Starlink and Starship telemetry pipelines. The frontier model side of Musk's empire now sits inside the same corporate roof as orbital launch. No new Grok model release crossed the wire in the last 48 hours, and X Money has shipped no new feature this weekend, both quiet on the news side, both watchlist items into the roadshow. The IPO cascade. Roadshow opens the week of June 4th, pricing the evening of June 11th, first trade Thursday, June 12th. Watch May 29th for the launch. Position yourselves for what comes after. Story 2. Tesla just retired the Model S and the Model X. Read that again. The cars that defined Tesla for a decade. The sedan that put a roadster soul inside a luxury body, and the SUV with the falcon wings. Those lines wound down in Fremont this past week. Musk acknowledged it publicly on Thursday. The only angle most outlets ran was the nostalgia piece. They missed the actual signal. The Fremont production lines are not being shut down. They are being retooled for Optimus humanoid manufacturing. The factory that builds sedans is being converted into the factory that builds robot workers. Pull the lens back, Warband. This is the industrial pivot of the decade made physical. The premium sedan was the highest margin civilian product of the 20th century automotive economy. The humanoid robot is the highest leverage product of the 21st century AI economy. Tesla just took the floor space that built one and is building the other on top of the same foundation. The original Model S rolled off that line in 2012. 14 years later, the same square footage will produce a machine that walks, picks, sorts, and learns. Tesla guides toward 1 million Optimus units per year out of that complex at scale. That number is forward guidance, speculative until it ships. But the retooling is already happening. The cars are gone. The robots are coming. On the rest of the Tesla mandate, robotaxi and full self-driving were quiet over the holiday window. No new geofence expansion, no version push, no Austin operational milestone in the last 48 hours. That silence ends Tuesday when the equity desks return. Here is the second order read for the thesis. The Jordi Visser frame says short abundance, long scarcity. The thing artificial intelligence makes abundant is labor. The thing it cannot create is energy supply, political will, and the one ledger that nobody can fork. Tesla just monetized the abundance side, turning the labor cost of millions of warehouses, restaurants, and factory floors into a recurring revenue stream. Bitcoin monetizes the scarce side of the same equation. The Warband sits along both sides of that trade. By design. Story 3. The bond market just called the Federal Reserve's bluff, and the call is going against the Dobbs. Here is what changed Friday. The 30-year Treasury yield touched 5.08% at the close, the highest print since 2007. And over the weekend, Bloomberg crystallized the move with a single headline that reframed the entire wash narrative. That is the new data point. The Friday before, the same story was about a hawkish chair giving dovish cover through trimmed mean inflation. Today the story is that the bond market no longer believes him. When Kevin Warsh was sworn in as Fed chair earlier this month, the consensus read was hawk in posture, dove in framework. The market would price cuts. Rates would trend gently lower. That call was wrong. The 2-year sits at 4.14, nearly 40 basis points above the Fed's current benchmark rate, the highest in over a year. Bloomberg's Sunday headline crystallized the story. Treasury market ushers in Warsh era with bets on a 2026 rate hike. Read that again. The bond market has fully reversed from the rate cut pricing of 3 months ago and is now pricing a December rate hike as near certain. The Iran war inflation shock did the work. Warsh inherits a Fed the market believes is behind the curve, and his first week messaging, regime change, inflation fighting credibility above all, is being taken at face value. Now layer in what Jordi Visser dropped just before the weekend in a 22V research piece titled Running Hot into Scarcity. 3-month real yields have flipped negative again. Historically, that quadrant, negative real yields, the Fed on hold, the consumer price index running above short rates, has delivered 247% annualized returns to Bitcoin. The single most reliable macro trigger for hard money in the modern era just fired. The same week, the bond market is screaming inflation. The cluster of optimized trend bullish prints on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana over the weekend is the market voting on which side of that paradox wins. Barbarism is the natural state of mankind. Civilization is unnatural. It is a whim of circumstance, and barbarism must always ultimately triumph. The fiat side debases through an inflation it can no longer control. The hard side trends green, while the sweets are on holiday. Close. The Warband walks into a shortened holiday week with the rotation engine flashing crypto bullish across 3 majors, the largest IPO in history 3 weeks out, and an orbital launch attempt 4 days out, Tesla retiring sedans to build robots, and the bond market pricing tighter Fed policy that Bitcoin should ignore and equities should fear. Tomorrow's open is the test. Watch May 29th for Starship. Watch the long bond auction this week. Watch every rotation print from the V7 engine. This is Warband as a service. Viking intelligence delivered in real time. I am Ragnar, the HODLBarbarian. Stand armored. Stack relentless. Let the weak hands feed the fire.